Well, Elon Musk says that moving to Mars will one day cost less than $500,000. That means that many could simply sell their home and then move to the next planet along. Mr. Musk has a habit of igniting our imaginations like this, whether it's by promising tunnels through the Blue Mountains or even suggesting that Teslas of the future will have dog-friendly settings.
For tonight's Taking Stock, we're joined by Stephen Shearer, Digital CEO, also the former CEO of Facebook Australia, and Napoleon Purtis, founder of the makeup empire, Napoleon Purtis. So, Napoleon, welcome to both of you. There is a question, I guess, would you sell up and move to Mars if it was that cheap? I guess we should address that first up. We can go on, but anyone want to head to Mars? Is the planet bad enough right now?
I mean, I personally am a big believer in our planet. I think it's humans that are going to have to make changes. The planet will remain and evolve like it's done for millions of years before. I can't think of being anywhere further from the ground. Anything that kind of takes me anti-gravity, even I'm like, I had to do fear of flying courses. So, I absolutely just want to be on Earth and it's just as comfortable and as simple as possible.
Well, you're unconscious on the journey, Napoleon, so
right.
don't worry about
but
that.
He did say that you might die, right? He made that pretty clear.
That's pretty honest, right? They say you might die, you may never come home.
Honest. There is a bigger picture question here on great leaders and how big they should think. Because you get a lot of people rubbish Elon Musk because his ideas are so big, they're literally out of, they're literally out of this world, right? Do you see him as a great leader or just kind of on crazy planet, on kind of off him?
No, I think Elon Musk is a great leader. I think he's had a lot of inspirational ideas. He's built amazing businesses. A few years ago, Tesla was a glimmer in his eye, and I can remember hearing about, he's going to build a business that's based on, electric vehicles. It's going to be a mass market. And it's struggled with some of his production issues and other things, but its market capitalization, its value, so it's not listed yet, but its value, it's higher than any Detroit manufacturer. So he's already built a bigger business in terms of value than anything in Detroit. Now, that's amazing. From scratch, he's built this brand and this profile. Now, he's applying that to bigger things like space, and I think he's really emblematic of a new generation of technological leader that's coming out of Silicon Valley who just have huge dreams. A few years ago, the dreams were, in a way, even though they were big, they were smaller. Like put a computer on everybody's desk, or shrink it down in everybody's hand, or make music, something that you could just play on a small device. That was the big vision that came out of businesses like Apple. But now that they've cracked a lot of that code, they've moved on to much bigger things. So it's, it's curing disease, it's space travel, it's so changing some of these really big, hard to shift problems. And I think space has always been sitting there for decades as something that was a bit sleeping because, we went up to the moon and then we never went back. And so I'm really excited by the vision of Musk, and Jeff Bezos is another one that's high on space.
I personally, I'm excited by that vision, but I'm going to just take it a step sort of in a different direction to where I truly believe that leaders should be able to have white space and to be able to write the rules, that suit the community and suit, what is better for humanity overall. And I actually really am about leadership feeling free to do that, even with mistakes. This last, 10 days for me has been huge. Of course I made mistakes, okay? But, was I not supposed to create something? When I see some of those comments, I feel like writing back and saying, what did you create? Because at least I created something, and I'm trying to actually just make sure it's a total white space that I can rewrite certain things and make them right. And I think that leaderships on all levels should be encouraged to do that. And it's actually coming a lot from the private sector because the government's too busy trying to prop things up. And, and I just am a very big believer in, in allowing that to happen and encouraging our young to kind of be a part of that thinking and not putting things in front of them that kind of makes them feel like they've got to be put into trenches of how they need to think. The mind should be so free because from that we can extract the best and we will get the best as a human race, as a planet, as souls amongst a greater never-ending universe. I think that's really important.
Yeah, and I think having heroes to look up to like Elon Musk, it does inspire everybody. We forget about the heroes of the past like Thomas Edison. He didn't just come up with a light bulb. He had to go through 900 different filament types, and he failed, and eventually, he came up with the solution. And,
good point.
That's changed the world. And so, we need people out there who are thinking about changing the world and have the audacity to think big.
One of the great things about this new generation of leaders, as you put it, is is the access that we seem to have to them. A lot of the stuff that Elon Musk is famous for making headlines for starts out with a tweet from a normal person who tweets at Elon Musk, what do you think? Can you bore a tunnel through the Blue Mountains, Elon? Can you do something so that our dog won't be stressed out in the car if we leave him in there for a few minutes? What do you think about that, the idea that people have access to this great mind now?
You know, I think the access is fantastic. When I was living in the United States, I said to someone who did a lot of work in Washington, I said, I don't understand why meeting the US president have to have credentials and be approved, because in Europe you basically can walk up to them and ask them questions. I said, that's not very democratic. And they go, you're right, but the process works. So for me, I think the more freer the access, the better. The only thing I want to see around access is I want to see people being transparent around where their interests lie, whether they've been paid in think tanks to create that sort of opinion, whether they've been paid by endorsements or sponsorships or gifts to do that. Like, I like the freedom. I'm not, as I said before, I think maybe last week, I'm not anti-digital. I'm not anti what is happening in the world today, but I am very much anti the non-transparency that we need to just explode. Otherwise, the fact that we can walk up to our leaders and ask questions or go direct is fabulous and fantastic.
As long as they apply their real name, even in some cases.
And that they're doing it themselves and not just teams. Because sometimes when an executive is that busy, they put teams in place. They may not necessarily represent that leader specifically. So I want to make sure transparency is what it's all about.
So true.
So true. Okay, moving on. The only person a school student should be compared with is him or herself and their own personal learning. This is according to Australia's biggest producer of teaching graduates, which has called for an end to traditional forms of assessment comparing students to age or grade level expectations. That's the Australian Catholic University. They say that kids should be aiming for their personal best, just like elite athletes. Stephen, what do you think about that?
I think there's a wider trend now that's based on data that's around personalization of everything. And so, you know, I was at Facebook, and Facebook personalizes the media and the world of posts for you. Your feed's different than the 2 other billion people on Facebook. The same thing is happening in things like medicine now, where, you know, drugs are being personalized based on your DNA and the issues that you're facing, your genetic code. So we're getting to this level of personalization of so many things. You know, we don't just take a pill that everybody takes. You take a pill that's only made for you. And so logically, it should extend into things like education. And when you think about your own experience, I'm sure we all had experience. You know, you'd sit in a classroom and you realize, hey, I'm just being taught the same as everybody else, and it's being mass produced essentially. There's small groups, maybe 30 or 40, but still, it's not tailored just to you. And surely the best development and education for anybody is something that's tailored just for them. The question is how you scale that. You know, how do you have personal education plans for every single student in every single school? And hopefully technology can help us do that.
Some people on the face of it might say to this, well, is this just a little bit more of the schools doing everyone gets a prize thing? You know, because people have been critical of, you know, the ways, you know, we used to be one prize in sport, and now everyone gets a little ribbon, or, you know, everyone gets their kind of stickers or whatever it is. But I don't necessarily think that this is what this is about when you actually think quite deeply about it.
I have 4 daughters, and, you know, one of the biggest challenges for me as a parent, because every parent has their own, is how I can encourage their environment, including the house, including me as a father, mother, the school, you know, their afternoon activities, to be as free as possible for them to be able to explore, you know, all avenues. Because, you know, psychologically, I want my children to feel like when they enter their home, as in their home, their mind, their soul, who they want to be, what they want to create. I don't want them just walking in the front door, coming out the back, and not really going into the bedrooms and exploring and cleaning. And I kind of use that parallel example. We've got to allow, you know, the children to be able to get in there, and if they get stuck in a corner, they can explore it, learn it, because then they'll come out into the corridor again, and life is entering in one end and exiting another end, right? So if they can take their life journey and actually explore those assets in themselves, and it can be freer, and school can help be a part of that without restrictions and without kind of, you know, conditions as to how you need to operate in school or be politically correct. I'm not saying that you then
measure it against 30 other people in the class on the same metrics.
Yeah, and don't take other people's space around that. Like, I think that's what you're saying in relation to scale, how you scale that up in schools, actually a challenge. But I'm really about making sure that the kids are right out there. And you know what? We're going to make mistakes in trying to get to that goal, but I think if we have that goal continually in place, it will make a big difference in society.
Fantastic. ASIC has been spending about $100,000, it seems, since late 2017 on changing its logo. Here it is. This is the after on the left there in the bold and the before next to it. So, yes, a bold move. People were joking because it does really seem like they just pressed Control-B on the computer. But no, they have been working on this since 2017, all while the Royal Commission has been calling ASIC out for not coming down harder on misconduct. Do we think this is what ASIC should be spending time and money on? And Chris and I were chatting, guys. This is not really a consumer-facing brand. I mean, why do they need to spend any money on a logo, really? They're not really trying to attract people to their business. This is taxpayer money, $100,000. What do you think, Napoleon?
Well, personally, I'm a really big believer in brands actually give subliminal messages. At the end of the day, there is a part of the community that needs to rely on ASIC, and if they kind of felt that they wanted to communicate a much more modern and out there or a different presence, then I'm not against it. You know,
you reckon they achieve that? You're into design. You're a creative bloke.
I don't necessarily like blue and black in that way, but I mean that's their sort of decision.
There you go.
But ultimately, you know,
you have more of a splash of pink or green, or what do you reckon?
Maybe green actually.
Green?
You got the memo today.
Thank
you. Green works really well. But I think ultimately, you know, using taxpayers' money, that's a whole different thing. I think there's room for government business enterprise. I think government can actually be a little bit more entrepreneurial and on how they use the money and then how they justify their decisions in using that money. Yeah. And I think making government more accountable, or bodies, you know, that are that represent arms of government or, you know, enterprise of government, making them more accountable, I think is really important. So am I anti-logo and do I like it? I don't really care. But am I kind of wanting to understand more about, you know, how public money is spent? I mean, I really want more spent on hospitals. I lost my father 18 months ago, and I have been away from the country generally for about 15 years, and I have seen a great deterioration in the public health system. I want to see government come back and put money in that. If they're doing all that and it's running like a utopia, then go for your life with as many logos as you want. But if there's lacking there and there's people, you know, really suffering and waiting, then no, don't, you know. But I'm not anti-branding as such.
Right.
Stephen?
Wow, I mean, that's hard to follow.
That's such a good summary. That is such a good summary.
But you know, ASIC's a big organization. There's lots of people doing lots of different jobs. So, you know, there's people whose job is to look after the marketing and the branding of ASIC, and you know, we can joke about it, but it has a profile it needs to maintain in the marketplace. The unfortunate thing is the change wasn't very dramatic. It was just a change of font as far as the naked eye can see. But I'm sure there were other subtle things about how it plays better on digital, etc.
Yes,
that they had to work out.
Yeah.
And $100,000, you know, it's not a trivial amount of money, but in the scheme of things, for getting something done like that, it's not a ton of money. But what I'd love to see is more kind of original ways and more innovative ways of trying to solve these problems. If anybody's run a small business, anybody watching ourselves, you know, if you have to come up with a logo, there's ways now, you know, through Logo Tournament and other websites where you can go get a logo designed by, you get 100 people to bid on designing a logo for you, you pay a couple $100 for it, and you can get a pretty good result. I've done that in some of the businesses I've been involved in. And so, you know, there's the traditional way of, hey, well, go to an agency and we'll pay a lot of money, or you can just go and find talented people to design it. And maybe you make it, you know, an Australian competition to come up with a logo for ASIC. Wouldn't that be exciting?
That's a brilliant idea, because that also means we're encouraging creative talent from another pool and we're bringing it to the
forefront.
forefront.
Why don't we take every government logo and just, you know, and have every Australian...
Put it out to some school kids. I reckon they come up with probably something more exciting than what we saw. Thank you so much, Napoleon, Stephen. Great to have you both on tonight.